She's too fat for the VIP floor. We want guests, not whales. Mr. Dante sneered, flicking his silk napkin so hard the glass beside Rosie wobbled and fell. She felt the champagne knock against her thigh, not shattering, just the wet, sticky chill trickling through the cherry velvet of her dress. Her cheeks burned, heat crawling up from her soft, Rubenesque neck to her ears. No one spoke. The white-gloved servers froze, eyes darting anywhere but her. Polished shoes squeaked in the hush. For a heartbeat, every ring in the crowded cocktail room seemed mounted only on her. Rosie gripped the edge of her purse, knuckles white. She was suddenly too wide, too obvious, her curves pushing against the careful seams of society's patience. All air in the soaring ballroom tasted of gin and cut flowers, heavy as judgment. From the far side of the room, a shadow lengthened, broad-shouldered, precise, a presence even the sharpest suits bristled around. He was watching. Rosie caught the stranger's gaze, dark and focused as midnight pressed to the city's glass. He didn't blink, didn't smile. Instead, with a single nod, he strode toward her, each step quiet thunder rolling over marble. Rosie barely had time to dab the spilled champagne from her hip with a cocktail napkin before the man arrived at her side. He moved with the surety of someone both unwelcome and untouchable, a tailored tempest beneath dimmed crystal lights. "Is this your idea of hospitality, Dante?" The stranger's voice was velvet over gravel, smooth and incongruently gentle. His gaze flicked, not at Rosie's ruined dress but at her hands, a fleeting study of how she folded the napkin, knuckles steady though her breath shallow. Mr. Dante only smirked, but the edge had dulled. "I run my casino as I please," he said, voice brittle with practiced power. The stranger leaned in, voice lower still. "And tonight, the guest of honor sits where she wishes." He didn't raise his voice, but the words carried, cutting as a razor slipped between ribs. He turned, addressing Rosie directly for the first time. "May I?" He gestured to her arm, not controlling, not offering, just opening a space where she could decide. Rosie managed a nod, voice lost to nerves. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her phrases clipped, eyes darting between Dante and the stranger. It was an accident. I don't want trouble." He only watched her with an intensity that made nerves sing. "Trouble has a mind of its own, darling." He spoke the word with a cold caress, archaic and intimate all at once. He bent, picked up the napkin she'd folded, examining the creases. "You keep order even when others lose it." For a moment, time stretched between them, the seconds stitched with something unspoken. Behind them, murmurs swelled. Who is he? How dare he? But Rosie barely heard. For the first time all night, her heart steadied. The boss, she recognized him now, name whispered in secrets and debts, offered her a fresh napkin. "No one touches what is under my roof," he said, gaze warning Dante as much as comforting her. Rosie thought the worst had passed until the next round. The casino owner was relentless, every smile laced with something sharp, especially now, his pride bruised by public challenge. She retreated to the lounge's mosaic-tiled bar, seeking invisible comforts among pressed lemons and the distant chime of slot machines. But Dante found her, drink in hand, crowd at his back. "So the whale swims free after all," he announced, gestures broad and mocking. "Rosie, you really thought you'd slip through my velvet rope? Don't think I don't remember the midnight buffet fiasco. What was that, 2 years ago? Some people never learn portion control." Faces turned, some grinning, others shrinking away, a fireworks show of shame, every burst aimed directly at her. Someone giggled into a martini. The bartender shifted uncomfortably, pretending to polish glass. Dante leaned close, breath sour. "Maybe someone upstairs likes a little extra," he stage whispered. "But next time you want the VIP suite, try a diet." Rosie's spine straightened, though her fingers trembled. "You're not as clever as you think," she replied quietly, each word nestled between crisp breaths. It was short, controlled, enough that those nearest heard and paused, surprise breaking through the haze of cruelty. From across the room, the boss stood. In his stance was rain about to fall. His eyes were arctic, his jaw rigid. He strode forward, suit nearly brushing Dante's shoulder. "That's enough." The words weren't loud, but their weight filled all gaps in the lavish air. Dante laughed, false and high. "This is my house, Bianc. You don't bark orders here." The boss's ringed hand hovered over the bar, resting lightly but undeniably in Rosie's direction, a shadow of ownership. Your house, perhaps, but my city. Next word and you find out what that means. Tension shimmered, someone's phone buzzed, a single fluted note breaking the tableau. The boss checked it, eyes flickering, brow carved in iron. His lieutenant, dark-suited, efficient, leaned in. Boss, the church, the old one on Penn Avenue, it's burning. A beat of time suspended in air. Bayank's face set. This is just the beginning. Tell security nobody leaves, not yet. Rosie, still pressed between the marble bar and Dante's sneering form, inhaled. She focused on her thumb stroking the napkin's edge, held steady by habit, not fear. The boss extended his hand to her. Come with me, darling. Before Dante could retort, Bayank's grip enveloped hers, large, warm iron, a silent promise. They slipped through the crowd, a corridor parting before them, and disappeared down the fire stairs. Behind them, doors slammed. Nobody leaves. He led her not to the glittering penthouse, but a shadowed side room, mahogany shelves stacked with ledgers, city maps thumbtacked and marked in red. Here, the pulse of the party faded. Bayank's jaw softened. Who was Dante to you? Rosie hesitated, words small. Just a casino manager he never liked. She broke off, voice faltering. My body, or that my shop survived when his cousins closed. A bookshop, he prompted, gentler than his reputation warranted. She cleared her throat. Vintage and new, Penn Avenue. Then, with an apologetic shrug, not what most people expect. I'm visible, sometimes in the wrong ways. He studied her. Dante preys on easy marks, but you held your ground, darling, most would have run. Somewhere in the party's depths, glass shattered, a reminder the world outside was not pausing for their confessions. Bayank picked up her hand, studied the curve of her knuckles, the way her thumb pressed logical patterns against skin. Order, even when chaos rules. He spoke as if solving a code. How long have you suffered his mouth? She glanced away. Years, she admitted, this time voice steady. He never changed, I just stopped letting him see it matter. He reached out, calloused thumb gently tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. The touch was careful, reverent, like turning a page in a priceless book. Suddenly his phone vibrated with insistence. He checked, then swore under his breath. Penn Avenue's old church burned down, my family's church, they want a message tonight. His gaze found hers, apology wrapped in steel. Rosie tensed, you don't have to protect me. If someone's after you, I'm not. He shook his head. Tonight you stay in my line of sight until I know you're safe. No arguments, darling. Before she could protest, the doors rattled. Bayank's main capo, Leo, entered. We tracked the arsonist. Your mother called. She's demanding your presence now. Rosie hesitated only a moment. Then, surprising even herself, she blurted, I'm coming with you. He glanced down, dark eyes narrowed. It's not a request, but if you want to walk beside me, you do. No one else understood. She nodded, longer sentences flowing out now, steadier. You're busy, but you need a witness tonight. You need someone who isn't your usual. People treat me as furniture. I hear everything. It was his turn to pause, calculation flickering in his gaze. An asset then, stay close. They moved, quick as secrets, through panic-lit corridors up to the penthouse war room, where city lights stretched infinite and dangerous beneath Pittsburgh's storm-stained sky. The war room bustled, men with tense faces, papers spread in careful disorder atop polished wood. The city's map glowed with shifting, coded overlays. As Bayank strode in with Rosie by his side, heads turned, curiosity, distrust, surprise, all mixing beneath backlit eyes. Bayank directed his men, tell me everything. Leo summarized, church is lost, boss, gasoline not accidental, but we caught a whisper before code word, Marconi. Lady at the casino bar got sick, sudden collapse, someone tampered with her drink. Rosie's muscles went taut. What drink? She asked, words sharp, for the first time unfaltering. A bartender, glass still in hand, stammered, a Negroni same as the one you refused. His voice echoed, guilty, uncertain. Without thinking, Rosie stepped past capos to the fainting woman. The scent of almonds, too sweet, clung to her lips. A sign trained into her muscles 4 lives ago, back when she stitched night shifts as an ER doctor in strangers. Heartbeats filled her world. Her hands moved, checking pulse, inspecting pupils. She's been poisoned, cyanide probably in the vermouth. The room crackled, shock off fear. How do you know? Leo demanded, eyes narrowing. For the first time, Rosie's voice rolled unbroken, rich with command. Fleeting almond odor, rapid collapse, cherry red lips, I know my poisons. A silence fell, a heaviness more profound than any insult Dante lobbed downstairs. Bianc looked at her, pride and suspicion colliding in his gaze. You hid this, darling. Rosie met his eyes, unflinching. People only see what they expect. I lost my license after a malpractice suit, bought the bookshop to stay tethered, but saving lives isn't easy to bury. A young capo gulped. She saved Mrs. Carbone tonight, boss, she's the reason that hit failed. Then, like a fever breaking, Bianc's focus shifted to revelation. Dante wasn't just a petty tyrant, he'd been the conduit. Leo confirmed, barman says Dante prepped the drinks special for the VIP floor. He's working with the arsonists. At that, Bianc's expression darkened. This stops now. He cupped Rosie's jaw gently right there in the open in front of every capo, every witness. Nobody moves against my house or my queen. The gesture was unmistakable, a claim, a line drawn in golden light beneath the city's shadow. Rosie held his hand steady as the syndicate began its own judgment. Bring Dante up, Bianc commanded. Let him see what I do to traitors. Dante was dragged in, red-faced, lips trembling, suit jacket askew. He tried one last bluff, voice cracking. You wouldn't touch me, this is business. Bianc stood unhurried, brushing invisible dust from his cufflinks. You tried to shame her, then kill her, and you set my family home ablaze. He flicked a glance to Leo. You know our code. The room watched, rapt. This was no vendetta, but syndicate law. Leo nodded, an underworld ritual cold as glass. For breaking omerta and endangering family, the penalty is removal, permanently. Rosie didn't flinch, not now. She watched as Dante was removed, his cries muffled by the closing doors. Beside her, Bianc's palm steadied at her back, reassuring if not gentle. Outside, the rain tongued the city's edge clean. News came in, the rival faction fractured, their message failed. Police intercepted 2 more arsonists by the old rectory, thanks to a call that Rosie, unnoticed, had placed. An hour later, in the mansion's top-floor library, Bianc stood with Rosie under the vaulting glass. The city blazed below, nicks of golden light over rain-sheened roofs. He turned to her, pressing something cool into her hand, a heavy signet ring etched with the Bianc crest. You saved my empire tonight, Rosie. You saw what others missed. His lips hovered just above her brow. You stand beside me now, darling, not behind. They entered the great hall together, every capo, every cousin, rising as they passed. Chairs pulled back for her, the first time in years without a catch in her breath or a calculation in her path. She stopped, voice calm, resonant. I'm not leaving, not now, not ever. The words were simple, no apology, no explanation, just fact. The room accepted it, and so did she. If this story made your heart pound, hit like and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next Mafia romance drop. Tell us in the comments who your favorite character was. We'll see you in the next one. The night air tasted different when thunder had rolled through and left everything heavy with electricity and promise. Rosie followed Bianc onto the rooftop balcony, not out of fear or curiosity, but finally, out of her own will. The soft brush of her velvet skirt against the stone parapet felt like a liberation. Down on the streets, police vans pulsed blue and red among puddles. City workers began sweeping up fallen ash from the ruined church, and even the hum of traffic seemed less certain than the hush between her and the man who'd changed her fate. He leaned on the balustrade, tie loosened, the smoldering city reflected in his eyes. I owe you an explanation. The words were gentle, lacking their usual weight. My mother called because she believed tonight was family business. She was right, but not the way she expected. Rosie's heartbeat felt like a winged thing pounding to be let loose. Why me? She asked, honest now, stripped of all defenses. Why bring me up when you could have shut Dante down in private? Bayank's laugh was small, almost abashed. I needed everyone to see you as I do, not a pawn, not a liability, someone worth standing behind and beside. He took a breath, and for the first time his voice caught. Family isn't about blood, darling, it's about who defends you when the world wants you small. She stepped closer, acutely aware of her softness, her history, the stains of old pain she still sometimes wore like jewelry. You call me darling a lot, she said, smile breaking through despite herself. Don't think I missed it. He grinned, his edges smoothed out now that violence was spent. Would you prefer queen? Not tonight, she replied, giving his hand a small squeeze. Tonight, I want to be Rosie. Tomorrow, I'll figure out if I want to be anything more. He placed the signet ring into her palm again, solid, regal, a promise keyed in silver and weight. Whatever you choose, know that nobody writes you off on my watch again. The relief hit her in a wave, knocking loose the last remaining fragments of shame. Then let's go inside, she said. Let's see how many rooms in this palace I can claim with just my presence. He offered his arm, not protective, but as an equal. Together, they strode back into the penthouse where the last jittery remnants of the party had bled away, leaving only family behind. The main hall, so recently the theater of Dante's cruelty, now buzzed with the cautious energy of survival. A few of Bayank's captains gathered around a table in the corner, voices lowered, respect blooming in the space they gave her. A tray of tea and biscuits had replaced the towers of cocktails, and the roses along the grand stairs had shed their stiff ceremony, petals loose and alive with scent. Bayank guided Rosie past the remnants of his court, steering them into the library once more. The lights were low, casting intimate pools of gold across spines and parchment. He motioned to a buttery leather armchair, but she shook her head and wandered the edge of the room, drawn instinctively toward a shelf with a brass plaque, in memory of St. Paul's. You lost a church tonight. I'm sorry, Rosie murmured, tracing the engraved name with her finger. He leaned against a shelf, watching her with a softness that didn't quite fit his myth. We lost more than a building. That's where my father taught me everything, how to keep order even when chaos ruled. He'd say, leave the world better than you found it, one brick at a time. She turned, meeting his steady gaze. Tonight you did, no one got silenced. Truth came to light. Maybe you didn't save the church, but you protected everything it meant. He watched her for a long moment, expression unreadable. Funny, he said, for years I believed power was about fear, the way Dante ran things, but you stayed, even wounded, and never shrank. I think you taught me something else. Rosie laughed low and heartfelt. I taught you to speak quieter, you mean, or maybe to trust the person least likely to stand out. He grinned, to never ignore the quiet ones, darling. They change the world when nobody is looking. A knock at the door prompted both to straighten. Leo stuck his head in, more respectful than ever. Boss, police want a statement. They know nothing, but they're hungry for a leak. Want me to spin the story? Bayank tilted his head. No spinning tonight. The truth is enough. Arson, attempted poison, stopped by quick thinking. Tell them Rosie Carelli was the reason Mrs. Carbone lived. Rosie blinked. People will know. The media, the city. He nodded. Let them. Let the world see who saved my family. Let them rethink what they laugh at. Leo left, door whispering closed. For the first time in her adult life, Rosie felt herself uncurl. Her presence, her very shape, became not a vessel for ridicule or pity, but the seat of new power. She perched on the edge of the broad table. If people come to the shop for gossip, I'll sell them poetry. If they stay for scandal, I'll hand them history. Her voice had found new muscle. You don't owe me anything more, Bayank, but I like the way you see me. I like how I see myself with you. He stepped forward, hands gentle on her shoulders. This is only the beginning. You showed courage when all I could think of was retaliation. Not many would have spoken up for the fainting woman instead of looking away. Rosie's hands shook a little, truth nudging its way past self-doubt. Truth is, I only remembered I was a doctor when I saw the skin color, the smell. Even after years hiding, there's a part of me that can't help but run to the wounded. He smiled, pride creasing his face. Then stay running, darling, don't stop. In another corner of the penthouse, someone began a soft, tired version of Ave Maria. The sounds of violence and embarrassment had dulled. The city itself seemed changed, washed clean by fire and water, ready for new stories. Rosie took a long, steady breath. "Tomorrow," she said, "I open the shop at 9. There'll be questions, some of them ugly." "I could have someone stand outside," Bank offered softly, "or I could come myself." She tilted her head, a careful smile blooming. "Will you bring donuts?" His laughter, the first unguarded thing she'd heard all night, broke free, rich and real. "Only if you'll save me a table, darling. I want to hear how you reorganize a bookshelf when you're angry." She pictured it, her little shop, him ducked beneath the archway, a pink box of pastries, the street alive but different now that she didn't have to make herself small. For once, the future wasn't a corridor narrowing to nothing. It curved outward, options, light, strange music. She found herself standing easily beside him. "I like this ending," she admitted, "but I like beginnings even more." He bent, pressing his lips softly to her crown. "Then let's start one." For a while, they stood together, while the rest of the city remembered how to breathe. The next morning, sunlight fractured through stubborn Pittsburgh clouds as Rosie stacked returns behind the register. Her scalp tingled with the memory of Bank's touch, her wrists still circled by the ghost warmth of his hand. The bell chimed, and every sense honed tight as piano wire. She braced for the look, the stare, the whisper about the paper. But when she turned, it wasn't a reporter or gawker. It was Mrs. Carbon herself, cheeks pale but alive, arms full of zinnias. "Dante told me you were nobody," she said, voice thick with unshed tears. "If he'd had his way, I'd be a headline, not a visitor." She set the flowers on the counter. "Thank you, Rosie, for yesterday, for seeing me, not an inconvenience." Rosie couldn't help but smile through the wobble in her voice. "We've all been invisible, Mrs. Carbone, not anymore." Behind her, the door chimed again. This time, Bank entered, not as king, not as threat, but with a pink box of glazed donuts and a shy, almost boyish grin. A handful of the city's cast-offs, outcasts in their own minor ways, trailed in after him. An older teacher, a bus driver, Rosie's old friend Juno from the bakery. They made a line at her counter, all wanting something but lingering for more. The reassurance that this world today allowed them their space. Leo camped by the door, polished shoes planted as if willing the city to behave. Someone, maybe even Dante's old lieutenant, ran up the block, calling out that reporters had come but had left when there was no scandal, just a line for poetry and cinnamon buns. By noon, the little shop buzzed with laughter and stories, Mrs. Carbone reciting lines from Yeats, Juno passing out cookies, Leo refilling the tea urn as though he'd trained in Yorkshire instead of South Oakland. Bank, hands inked faintly with transfer from a newspaper crossword, watched the room become something gentler than survival. He found Rosie in the stacks, brushing loose hair from her face. "I called the crew," he murmured. "My family will rebuild the church. They asked if you'd pick the first book for its new library." Rosie stilled. For a moment the old insecurity clawed at her. Why would they ask me? Then she met his gaze and found no doubt, just warmth. "I want to choose something honest," she said, voice steady for everyone to hear. "Maybe something about belonging, about staying when it's hard, about not letting the world decide how much space you get to take up." The old regulars in the shop kept their conversations, unafraid now to share a room with the city's new mechanic of fate and soft places. Mrs. Carbone left arm in arm with Juno, promising to return with homemade biscotti for the next book club, and Rosie watched them go, pulse even, chest high, never shrinking. That evening, as the sun slanted pewter and honey through the display windows, Rosie flipped the closed sign and found Bank waiting at her side, as if he'd been there for years. "You want to come see the site?" he offered, voice low. She nodded, slipping her arm through his. Together they walked toward the place where faith had been burned, now powder and memory awaiting a new foundation. Rosie held the collected poems of Mary Oliver in her hand. As they approached the cranes and fresh bricks, she felt the city edge unlock, a wider room, more space for her step, her laugh. And when she set the first book down amid the promise of rebirth, every voice around her seemed to settle into quiet agreement. There would be no shrinking, not for Rosie, and not for anyone warmed by the flame she'd refused to let be snuffed. Bianc pressed the ring into her palm again, and this time she slipped it onto her finger, not as a shield but as a declaration. "We'll build it anew," he said softly so only she heard. Rosie smiled, holding his gaze and the rising sun alike. "Together," she replied, the word filling all the old cracks in her courage and making something stronger than stone. And for the first time, she didn't just believe it, she knew it. Rosie walked out of the shattered church with Bianc's arm firm around her shoulders, the book pressed tight to her chest. Behind them, workers swept ash from the flagstones while the fractured rose window glimmered with dawn. Her dress still bore faint stains, her hair threaded with the hush of long night, but she moved forward, pulse sure. Beside her, Bianc's eyes held the city entire, wide, expectant, no longer burdened. They stopped at the curb where Leo waited by a black sedan. For once, even his face hinted at relief. "You sure about this next part, boss?" he asked, glancing between them, hopeful and not hiding it. Bianc shrugged, voice softer than steel. "She's family, that's the last word." Rosie squeezed Bianc's hand, her thumb traced lazy patterns on his knuckles. "Funny," she said softly, "last night I was just another guest, then a mess to sweep aside. Now I must look different." He leaned close, voice pitched for her alone. "You look exactly like the woman who saved my life, like a queen who holds court in bookshops and rebuilt churches, not with noise but by standing her ground." Her laugh merged with morning's traffic, bolder, clearer than she'd ever let it be. "I get to write the next chapter then." Bianc smiled, "Only if you let me be in every other page." She pretended to consider, brows arched in gentle mischief. "Better bring me good coffee, I don't forgive weak espresso." "Done," he promised. As the city awoke, vendors opening awnings, pigeons clustering near warm grates, engines coughing courage, Bianc opened the sedan's door for her. She glanced back at the bones of St. Paul's where the first book crowned a rising stack. In that instant, she understood. Her story was no longer something forced quiet out of survival. She turned, the ring flashing in the sun, and said it one last time in front of all who gathered there. "I'm staying, here beside him, beside you all. We rebuild together." People cheered, real, unafraid cheers, the kind that echoed up the new day's spires. And Bianc, for once, looked at Rosie not as a rescuer or a queen or even a promise, but as a partner, bold and unshrinking, ready to meet the world at its fiercest edge and build something lasting and wide where only hush used to be.